Shalom. I'm Rabbi Michael Panitz of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia. I'd like to speak to you about curing our vitamin N deficiency. Now, if you know your vitamins, you know there's an A, a B, a C, a D, an E, and so on. You probably don't know a vitamin N. This terminology I have learned from my son, Rabbi Morris Benjamin Panitz of the American Jewish University. He's an environmentalist educator. And when he says vitamin N, he means vitamin nature, our need to be immersed in nature. We're deficient in it with calamitous consequences. So at this time, I'm going to speak to you about curing our vitamin N deficiency in light of this challenging situation that we find ourselves in coping with the COVID-19. We all know the damage that it's causing to life, to health, and also to the economy. It seems as if there's a bit of a silver lining in this cloud. We shouldn't make too much of it, but we have seen reductions in the amount of carbon dioxide that goes into the air, the amount of aerosols and NO2 that's going into the air. We've seen improvement in water quality. Many of us have noted that wildlife is reappearing in places where they had not been seen. So, in general, we now have a cleaner planet than we had 3 months ago. As it turns out, this idea that in the wake of even a disaster, there may be an environmental benefit actually shows up in the biblical portion that Jews are reading in synagogues around the world this Shabbat, or what they would be reading were they to gather in synagogues around the world. We're reading from the 25th and 26th chapters of Leviticus. In chapter 26, which is a chapter filled with dire announcements of the consequences of sin, catastrophes. We read after the account of the exile of the people off the land, chapter 26, verse 43, first in Hebrew, Vatiretz haaretz et shabbatoteha. The land will receive her desired Sabbath rest. Notice the use of the word Sabbath for the rest. That, which in the case of the land probably means resting, lying fallow, not being intensively worked, reminds us of what we read at the very beginning of chapter 25. Vishavta haaretz Shabbat ladonai. This is chapter 25, verse 2. When you enter the land, you shall work it for 6 years, but not the 7th year. On the 7th year, the earth, the land, will have a Sabbath unto the Lord. The same use of the word Sabbath. That's an interesting phrase, a Sabbath unto the Lord. What might it mean? Sabbath unto the Lord. One of the great Jewish Bible commentators, Rabbi Solomon, son of Isaac, whom we call Rashi, says that the Sabbath unto the Lord means Shabbat l'shem Adonai, a Sabbath for the sake of the Lord. That means that the Sabbath of the land is not only for your sake and mine. It's not only so that the land will regain its productivity and yield amply in the following years. The Bible is telling us that the land does not belong completely to us. And it doesn't matter how many legal titles you have to the land. The land belongs to God. As we say in Psalms, Ladonai haaretz umloah, Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's. Now we have the use of the earth. It also says in the Psalms, V'haaretz natan livnei adam. The heavens are the heavens of the Lord, the earth God gives for our use, but not to control it to the ultimate degree. It says in the same chapter 25 that the earth will not be sold utterly, but it still belongs to God even when we use it. And therefore we need to use it responsibly. It deserves its rest because, like ourselves, it is God's noble creation. The Shabbat, of course, is 1 day in 7. We know that after the Shabbat ends, you go back to work. And we know that after the sabbatical year, the earth goes back to work. But if the gains that we have seen in the quality of the environment, and therefore also, in some senses, the quality of life, the reduction in pulmonary disease, the reduction in deaths due in part or in whole by air pollution. If we want that to be a permanent and not a temporary improvement, then we have to find a way to go back to work differently than we were working before the end of 2019. Perhaps more people will telecommute. Perhaps the experience of having to treasure and dole out our visits to the groceries will make us waste less food. There could be many specific solutions, but they'll only happen if we first work on our mindset. The mindset is this. We've been given a kind of a time out. It's part of a challenge. It's part of a crisis. But in every crisis, there's also some sliver of opportunity. This is our opportunity to reset our relationship to God's world so that it can be a little bit more like the Eden that God first gave us to use, to benefit from, but not to abuse. It's our world to take care of. It's God's world. Shalom.